NBA YoungBoy earned $100 million from his garage while under house arrest last year, while the majority of 24-year-olds were concerned about student loans and entry-level employment. Take a moment to process it, family. $100 million from a garage while being prohibited from leaving his home by law. How does a North Baton Rouge child who left school in the 9th grade end up being the world's youngest rapper to amass such wealth? And why does he put out more music than musicians who have whole teams working for them? We're dissecting the most crazed work ethic and money-making machine in hip-hop history today, and it's your dude. Hello, I've returned with another in-depth documentary. Hello, I'm back with another exploration of what occurs when unbridled drive and natural skill collide. Today, we are delving into the tale of NBA YoungBoy, whose real name is Kentrell Deshaun Gaulden, and how he amassed a $100 million fortune before being able to legally rent a car. You have to understand NBA YoungBoy's background in order to comprehend how he became the youngest rapper to earn this amount of money. North Baton Rouge, Louisiana, is the subject of our conversation. In particular, Chippewa Street and North 38th Street. Gang, this isn't just any hood. This is one of the riskiest neighborhoods in one of America's most deadly cities. North Baton Rouge is where the majority of the violence occurs, and Baton Rouge has one of the highest murder rates in the country. Kentrell was born. When Deshaun Gaulden was born in 1999, YoungBoy was already battling against insurmountable obstacles. Jeffrey Tate, his father, had been condemned to 55 years in jail when YoungBoy was just 8 years old. Therefore, he was absent from his life during his childhood. This was also no little expense. After shooting a store worker during a heist at AL's convenience store on North Sherwood Forest, his father was found guilty of armed robbery and attempted first-degree murder. When I was 8 years old, my father turned 55. Later, YoungBoy would rap. And when you really comprehend the circumstances, that statement strikes a new chord. His dad simply wasn't there. He was imprisoned for effectively a life sentence, leaving YoungBoy to fend for himself on the streets without any male supervision. The tragedy, however, did not end there. Andy Gaulden, the YoungBoy's maternal uncle, was likewise living in the shadows. In Baton Rouge, Andy was a notorious thief, but his tale ended much worse than YoungBoy's father's. Andy was shot in the head and died during an attempted robbery. Later, YoungBoy would make reference to this in a number of tracks, rapping about his uncle's death from a gunshot wound to the head when he was hitting a lick. Take a moment to consider this. By the time YoungBoy was 8 years old, his uncle had died from street violence and his father had been serving a 55-year sentence. Most children would be broken by that kind of trauma. However, for YoungBoy it turned into fuel for a larger project. Sharonda Gaulden, his mother, was attempting to keep everything together, but she was unable to be everywhere at once. Thus, Alice Gaulden, YoungBoy's grandma, was the most significant individual in his early life and served as his protector. YoungBoy referred to his grandma as his protection in a 2023 Billboard interview, and you could sense the anguish in his voice as he discussed losing her. After his grandmother died, YoungBoy's entire world collapsed. He ended up in a group home after his grandmother passed away, his father was imprisoned, and his uncle had died. At this point, the narrative becomes somewhat bleak. Due to the fact that the group home wasn't a place of refuge, YoungBoy was subjected to bullying and physical abuse in yet another hazardous setting. This is what sets YoungBoy's story apart from other rappers who grew up in similar circumstances. I had to fight for survival as a child. YoungBoy would later clarify in interviews, the experience of being targeted and abused in the group home forced him to develop a dark, violent side just to protect himself. This wasn't a choice. It was survival. He was coping with severe bodily trauma even as a toddler. When he was a young child, he suffered a terrible injury to his neck while wrestling, requiring him to wear a complete brace for his head and neck while his spine recovered. He has 3 lasting scars on his skull after the operation. Scars that are still present now and act as a continual reminder of the suffering he has experienced from birth. It wasn't simply adults who were at risk on North Baton Rouge streets. They were also claiming children. YoungBoy lost one of his best friends to gun violence when he was only 10 years old. At a memorial picnic intended to remember teenagers who had died at the hands of firearms, David Cobb, often known as Lil Dave, was shot in the spine at the age of 16. It was devastatingly ironic. The event that killed Dave was designed to stop exactly what occurred to him. A helicopter murdered Dave. Later, YoungBoy would rap. And his heart grew cold at the loss of his friend at such a young age. He describes in his lyrics how Lil Dave taught him how to shoot dice, smoke, and earn money for sneakers. When he was only 10 years old, he lost someone who was like a big brother to him. This set the seeds for darkness that would affect his music for years to come. The mix of trauma, loss, and street influence had totally ruined YoungBoy's education by the time he was in the 9th grade. He began robbing people after quitting school, carrying on his father's and uncle's legacy. He was taken to a juvenile jail facility after being caught for robbery when he was 14 years old. This is where YoungBoy's tale differs from that of the majority of children who enter the system. As he was imprisoned, he learned something that would permanently alter his life: music. YoungBoy wrote at least 25 beatless songs during his 6 months in juvenile jail, using music as a means of expressing the trauma and sorrow he had been dragging around throughout his life. Regarding his time in detention, YoungBoy stated, "It helped me know my purpose, helped me know what I want to do. I gained self-expression skills from it." To comprehend YoungBoy's subsequent success, this is essential. For him, music was more than just a career. It was a combination of therapy, survival, and purpose. YoungBoy was digesting generational differences while other children his age were preoccupied with relationships and homework. Trauma via melodies and lyrics. YoungBoy had changed by the time he was released from juvenile jail in 2015. Although he was only 16 years old, had no money, no contacts, and no real plans other than to pursue his passion for music. He had discovered his calling. He did, however, possess an unwavering work ethic and a strong will to never again be broke. When his debut mixtape, Life Before Fame, was released in April 2015, it was incredibly unpolished. This was not a well-executed debut. From a teenager who had experienced more trauma than most adults, it was unadulterated emotion. You could hear the anguish and rage in every bar of the tape, which included songs like Homicide and Range Rover. But YoungBoy's narrative wasn't the only thing that made him stand out from other up-and-coming rappers. It was his creation. YoungBoy was putting out mixtapes every several months, but most musicians only released one project annually. December 2015 saw the release of Mind of a Menace, which was followed by Mind of a Menace 2 in April 2016 and Before I Go in June 2016. Gang, this wasn't typical. Most musicians spend years to establish their sound and repertoire, while YoungBoy approached music as a full-time career right away. In September 2016, 38 Baby made the breakthrough. He grew up on North 38th Street, which inspired the title tune, which depicted his everyday life in dramatic detail, drinking heavily, smoking like a fiend, and hurling missiles at those who wronged him. The song talked about the stress of being a 16-year-old who had to keep an eye out for buddies who had turned against him and was unable to leave the house without an armed guard. Here's the crazy part, though. In the studio, YoungBoy was actually using an AK-47 to record some of these tracks. You can see how perilous his life was, even while his music career was taking off, by seeing the footage that later came to light of him in the studio with a fully automatic rifle. Everything was altered by the music video for 38 Baby. People were astonished to see someone so young leading such a risky life, and it demonstrated YoungBoy and his crew's formidable weaponry. Today, the video has received over 100 million views. More significantly, though, it attracted the notice of well-known musicians who saw YoungBoy's potential. Kevin Gates, one of the biggest rap stars in Louisiana, was so thrilled that he got a tattoo of YoungBoy's portrait on his leg in addition to being included on the 38 Baby mixtape. He accepted Boozy Badass' invitation to work on My Little Son. Savage jumped on a Murder remix in 21. Not all of them were cosigns. They were endorsements from artists who knew what true street cred meant. However, YoungBoy was juggling major legal troubles with the development of his music career. Everything he had built was in danger of collapsing due to issues caused by the same street life that gave him credibility in his songs. He was facing several charges by 2017 and might potentially spend a significant amount of time behind bars. Most young artists would have slowed down or attempted to polish their image at this point. However, YoungBoy took the opposite action. He produced twice as much music. He continued to release projects despite his legal troubles, cultivating a more devoted fan base than the industry has seen in years. It's not simply a skill that sets NBA YoungBoy apart from all the other rappers in the game. His work ethic is completely ridiculous. We are discussing an artist who approaches music in the same way as people approach breathing. DJ Demix, who has first-hand knowledge of YoungBoy's business, claims that most people would be broken by his daily routine. He performs for almost 2 hours. He records a video both before and after the performance. After the show, if he's not filming a video, he's recording music. For him, Guy, the entertainment never ends. Thus, that work ethic remains. Scholars clarified. Take a moment to consider that. After a tower performance, YoungBoy records more music in the studio and films a music video. It's not a noteworthy event. That's what he usually does. YoungBoy is producing more content while other musicians are taking breaks between projects or partying after gigs. Not only is this work ethic remarkable, but it is the cornerstone of his whole business strategy. YoungBoy discovered that volume was the key to making actual money in a time when streaming only pays a small portion of what physical purchases used to bring in. If a single song brings in $10,000, 100 songs will bring in $1 million. Even though it's easy math, most artists lack the discipline to accomplish it. This is supported by the numbers. In the last 5 years, YoungBoy has put out more songs than most musicians do in their whole careers. We're discussing dozens of albums, mixtapes, and joint endeavors. His streaming stats are regularly among the highest in hip-hop, and his YouTube channel has had billions of views. However, recording music is only one aspect of the work ethic. YoungBoy keeps in close contact with his fan base, handles his own social media accounts, and produces his own videos. He is a content creator who never stops creating. He is more than just an artist. The empire of house arrest. YoungBoy's legal issues finally caught up with him in 2021. After being taken into custody on federal charges, he was subsequently put under house detention until trial. This would have been career suicide for most artists. You are unable to tour. You are unable to perform. You're not even allowed to shoot outside your home. Music videos. However, YoungBoy's most lucrative phase of his career was built in house arrest. Financially speaking, 2023 was the year that everything changed, according to DJ Academics, who has insider knowledge of YoungBoy's business. According to scholars, YoungBoy allegedly earned $100 million last year. We call him 100 mil out of the garage. In other words, he gained $100 million in 2023 only by creating movies in his garage, according to my buddy OG3, who was a guy when I was there. On house arrest, he stole $100 million from a garage. This is unprecedented in the history of hip-hop, so take a moment to process that. No musician has ever made this much money while being forbidden by law to leave their home. How did he accomplish it, though? The funding came from a variety of sources, according to the split by Academics. It seems that he sold a portion of his catalog for between $30 and $35 million. After signing another contract with capital worth between $30 and $40 million, he made a number of other transactions. I will not discuss those. In addition, he already had royalties from his recordings. The catalog offer was very well thought out. Since YoungBoy had operated independently for the majority of his career, he was the owner of his masters, or the recording rights. After his long-term worth was demonstrated by his streaming numbers and devoted fan base, he was able to sell some of his catalog for enormous sums of money while keeping the rights to upcoming releases. According to reports, the new contract with Capitol Records was valued between $30 and $40 million, but it wasn't your typical record deal. With the resources of a major label behind him, YoungBoy was able to continue his high-output strategy by maintaining considerable control over his music and release schedule. However, the money wasn't the only noteworthy aspect of the house arrest period. It was YoungBoy's method of transforming a legal constraint into an artistic advantage. He turned his garage into a commercial studio and video production company because he was unable to leave his home. Every week, he shot several music videos from the same spot, but he used post-production and creative direction to give each one a unique style. Because it felt more intimate and personal, the content was engaging fans more deeply. Instead of lavish settings and ornate setups, YoungBoy was providing fans with an intimate glimpse into his everyday existence while under house arrest. The output was consistent, and the legitimacy was indisputable. It is necessary to comprehend YoungBoy's familial circumstances in order to comprehend his motivation to earn money. YoungBoy, who is only 25 years old, has 12 offspring from several women. This would be viewed as a hardship or an error by most individuals. However, YoungBoy's children serve as his main source of inspiration for all he does. In several interviews, YoungBoy has stated, "I have 12 children to feed." Furthermore, this isn't just a disposable line. It is the motivation for his whole professional life. There is a lot of pressure to make money when you have 12 children, their mothers, and other family members who rely on you. However, it goes beyond necessities like food and housing. YoungBoy aspires to provide his kids the possibilities he was never given. He wants them to live in safe communities, attend reputable schools, and never have to worry about money like he did as a child. Most people can't even conceive the kind of revenue needed to maintain that degree of financial discipline. The arithmetic is straightforward but astounding. If every child needs $100,000 annually for living expenses, schooling, and planning for the future, that's $1.2 million a year for his children alone. Include his own lifestyle, taxes, company expenditures, the mother, and his extended family. And in order to keep up with his current circumstances, YoungBoy must earn several $1,000,000 annually. YoungBoy has an extremely strong work ethic, which can be explained by this financial strain. He cannot afford to depend on conventional industry deadlines, take breaks, or experience creative blocks. Every day that you don't make money is a day that you fall more behind when you have 12 children who rely on you. However, there is more to the incentive than merely fiscal responsibility. Little Boy was raised without a father, and he is resolved to spare his kids from going through that same desertion. He is highly involved in his children's lives and regularly shares content about them on social media, despite his legal issues and the turmoil in his personal life. Regarding his attitude to fatherhood, the YoungBoy has stated, "I'm trying to break the cycle." He witnessed too many fatherless children and too many families torn apart by incarceration and violence while growing up in North Baton Rouge. Money isn't the only factor in his success. It's about demonstrating to the next generation that someone from his background can create something enduring. YoungBoy's financial success is noteworthy not only because of the quantity of money he has made, but also because of the method by which he has done so. Although the majority of artists depend on conventional sources of income such as YoungBoy has developed an entirely new economic strategy that makes the most of every facet of the contemporary music industry, including album sales, touring, and endorsements. Ownership is the cornerstone of his success. For the majority of his career, YoungBoy kept custody of his masters, in contrast to many other artists who give up their rights in exchange for cash up front. This meant that instead of a record company, he made money directly from each stream, download, and licensing agreement. The streaming approach is especially brilliant. YoungBoy floods the market with content, whereas most musicians concentrate on making 1 or 2 hit songs annually. New videos are constantly being added to his YouTube channel. His new music is constantly available on streaming services, and he consistently posts content on social media. His consistent output guarantees that fans will always have something fresh to enjoy and keeps him relevant in algorithms. Another important factor is the direct fan relationship. To reach his fans, YoungBoy doesn't depend on gatekeepers in the industry or radio play. Through social media, he interacts with his fans directly, answers their questions, and gives them a sense of inclusion in his journey. This fosters a degree of loyalty that immediately increases sales. When he was allowed to tour, the touring model was equally groundbreaking. DJ Academics claims that YoungBoy was earning between $800,000 and $1 million every event with some. According to projections, his entire tour may bring in more than $50 million. For the duration of this tour, what do you believe YoungBoy receives? What does YoungBoy keep after paying for production and security venues? $50 million. More scholars came forward. These figures are unusual for a little boy of his age. YoungBoy's consistent output and genuine connection with fans enabled him to achieve the kind of fan base that can sustain millions of dollars in show fees in a matter of years, something that most musicians take decades to do. YoungBoy's success is fueled by more than just business acumen and financial incentives. A psychological drive to prove himself as a result of his difficult upbringing. Failure is not an option because of his upbringing without a father, the death of his grandmother, and his survival on the streets of North Baton Rouge. YoungBoy has stated in interviews that he dislikes disappointment. Simply, I dislike placing too much trust in anything. It's just like knowing that, and it's not a pleasant sensation at all, even though I know some individuals who are undoubtedly disappointed. I therefore try not to let myself down. He works harder than anyone else in the industry because he fears failing. YoungBoy releases 5 albums annually, whereas most musicians only release 1. If someone else. YoungBoy shoots a video every week, whereas artists shoot one every month. He works harder than anybody around him in an attempt to keep ahead of possible failure. He also had a sense of urgency that most people don't have because of the trauma he experienced as a child. You realize that time is limited and success isn't assured when you've witnessed friends pass away at a young age, family members serve lengthy sentences in prison, and possibilities vanish in an instant. Knowing that everything might be taken away at any time, YoungBoy tackles his career with that mindset. His greatest strength and worst vulnerability are both aspects of this attitude. Although it motivates him to attain extraordinary achievement, it also produces a degree of anxiety and paranoia that impacts his mental health and interpersonal relationships. The same motivation that brought him $100 million also keeps him alone and on guard all the time. The popularity of YoungBoy has radically altered the way the music business functions. His self-directed strategy demonstrated that musicians may achieve the greatest levels of financial success without the assistance of major labels. His fan base is more active than most popular performers, and his streaming figures regularly match or surpass those of musicians with significant industry support. He has set a higher standard for other artists with his work ethic. In a time when many rappers take extended pauses between projects and only occasionally produce music, by contrast, Boy's consistent output makes other artists appear indolent. Fans now anticipate their favorite artists to release more often, communicate more openly, and provide more genuine stuff. Other young artists' approaches to their careers have also been impacted by the financial model he developed. For new artists entering the market, the traditional advice has become to maximize streaming earnings, maintain direct fan interactions, and own your masters. Most significantly, though, YoungBoy's success has demonstrated that hip-hop still values sincerity. Millions of followers who are yearning for something authentic have responded favorably to YoungBoy's authentic connection to his heritage and his unvarnished approach to revealing his life in an age of manufactured personalities and industry plants. The legal status of NBA YoungBoy has considerably improved as of 2025. Since being released from house imprisonment, he has resumed his regular promotional efforts and touring. However, by demonstrating that his success was independent of conventional marketing strategies, the forced seclusion time actually improved his standing in the industry. He has financial security that most musicians never attain thanks to the $100 million he made while under house arrest. In order to diversify his sources of income beyond music, he has made investments in real estate, commercial endeavors, and the future of his kids. The drive hasn't lessened, though. If anything, his accomplishments have inspired him to pursue even greater heights. He has expressed his desire to become the first rapper to make $1 billion in his career. And that objective doesn't seem out of reach considering his past performance. The key motivating factor is still the family. YoungBoy's financial obligations will only increase since he has 12 children and possibly more on the way. However, his fan following is still growing internationally, and he has developed a business plan that can grow with his requirements. The tale of YoungBoy embodies more than just personal achievement. He has demonstrated that a person from the most underprivileged background can create fortune for generations to come through talent, a strong work ethic, and astute business choices. His accomplishments dispel myths about young black males from low-income families and demonstrate what can happen when unbridled skill and unwavering willpower combine. The perseverance needed to thrive in hip-hop is further demonstrated by the fact that he attained this degree of success despite facing significant legal challenges. Legal issues have been utilized by several artists as justifications for stalling their careers. However, YoungBoy found methods to flourish in spite of the challenges and used his limitations as advantages. Despite being unorthodox, his paternal style offers young guys in hip-hop an alternative role model. Rather than leaving his kids behind or considering them as liabilities, YoungBoy has made them the core of his drive and openly accepted his job as a protector and provider. YoungBoy's experience teaches us the value of genuineness and consistency above everything else. YoungBoy's success has been based on continuously producing genuine content that engages his audience, while other musicians attempt to create viral moments or follow trends. His demonstrated work ethic is also instructive for anyone aspiring to succeed in any career. What distinguishes amazing success from average outcomes is the determination to outwork everyone around you, approach your profession like a full-time job, and never be content with your existing accomplishments. His business sense, especially with regard to ownership and direct fan interactions, offers other artists a model for. Optimize their earning capacity. Labels and middlemen are the intended beneficiaries of the conventional music industry model. However, YoungBoy demonstrated that by keeping control and establishing a direct line of communication with fans, artists can command higher prices. Most significantly, his narrative demonstrates that your past need not dictate your future. With a violent environment and a father incarcerated, YoungBoy had every reason to fail growing up in North Baton Rouge. Rather, he fueled his extraordinary achievement with those experiences. In the end, NBA YoungBoy a narrative about change. How someone may overcome the most difficult situations in turn, transforming them into the cornerstone of remarkable achievement. More than just financial success can be seen in his path from a traumatized child in North Baton Rouge to the youngest rapper to earn $100 million. It is evidence that any challenge may be conquered by skill, diligence, and sincerity. He earned $100 million while under house arrest, but it's more than just a figure. It's a declaration of what's possible when you don't let your circumstances dictate your boundaries. YoungBoy was adjusting, inventing, and creating an empire from his garage while other musicians were griping about CO limits and changes in the industry. His drive to support 12 children and end intergenerational cycles of poverty and desertion lends a greater meaning to his accomplishment. More than merely material prosperity, he is constructing more than simply a profession. His family will be impacted by the legacy he is creating for many years to come. He has reinvented what it means to be a professional artist in the modern period with his work ethic, writing songs, filming videos, and interacting with fans at a rate that would tire most people. He has demonstrated that waiting for opportunities is not the key to success. It's about producing them with constant output and unrelenting effort. YoungBoy's narrative provides motivation for anybody who has been written off, ignored, or told that their aspirations are unattainable, as he continues to develop as an artist and businessman. He's living evidence that seemingly impossible things can be accomplished with enough talent, willpower, and astute judgment. One of the most successful musicians of his generation is the young man from North 38th Street, who began penning songs while incarcerated. More than that, though, He has come to represent what is possible when you are determined to surpass everyone around you and don't accept limitations. The chapters we've seen so far demonstrate that NBA YoungBoy is more than just a rapper, but his story is still being told. He is a natural force who has radically altered the definition of success in the hip-hop industry. And at just 25, with 12 children to inspire him and an unwavering work ethic propelling him ahead, his greatest. He might yet have accomplishments to come. There is no slowing down for the youngest rapper to earn $100 million. He has only just begun. And all the other artists in the game should be terrified by that. Because YoungBoy can earn this much money from a garage while under house arrest, just think of what he could accomplish if he had unrestricted resources and total freedom. The game is no longer the same. The person who altered it from North Baton Rouge to $100 million was an NBA little boy.